Hi dear Kalu students, happy to meet you again in the third video on our module cross-cutting issues. This past week we explored about rights-based approach. I'm going to go again say a story of 20 plus years back, and I feel like a dinosaur when I do so, but but I would just like to share this because right-based approach, it was not at all in the minds of humanitarians or in the minds of human rights people like 20 years back. Here actually it's 23 years back, 1997, I'm doing my first job interviews to engage with a humanitarian organization. And I remember this really excellent interview, a set of interviews. It was very complete kind of recruitment process with an organization. And at that time, my profile, I had studied law. I specialized in human rights law, I did some courses on international human rights law, also international humanitarian law. But my profile was really much more about human rights, no? I had volunteered for many years and done a lot of projects with Amnesty International, among these projects setting up the women's rights team. Well, a number of initiatives, written a number of articles about human rights, etc. So when I arrived to this interview, the operational director, an amazing, inspiring leader, and she became a great friend of mine. She said, your background is really much human rights, and so why do you want suddenly to do humanitarian aid? And when you are here, you've never thought about a question, and it's just on the job interview, and so just keep silence 1 or 2 seconds, and I just answer what for me seemed really natural in evidence. I say, well, I would understand humanitarian aid as a right, as a human right. And she did agree with my point. Actually, she liked it, and we had further discussions about that after the interview. I got the job, really excited. But and here, this question surprised me. But after my experience in humanitarian aid, really showed me that yes, there was this huge separation between human rights and humanitarian aid. Humanitarian aid was really much supporting people in need, but these people had no rights. Oh, we would not look if they have rights or not. So we were attending needs. And human rights people would get sometimes very upset with the humanitarians, saying that because we're attending people's basic needs, then they don't have the same leverage or pressure on the governments. For example, in 2002, I worked in Zimbabwe. It was the start of a moment of famine, of starvation, of malnutrition. There was the land reform a few months before, and then the disaster started. From the basket of Africa, became a country where people were hungry, and at that time I was working with Oxfam. I remember we organized the first food distribution at that time, and human rights organizations were really critical of all of us involved in food distribution and in all the issue related to nutrition at that time, saying yes, because you're feeding people, so people are not going to rebel against the government, and there were these kind of conflicts and discussions. Well, discussions, actually no discussions. It was pure conflict, and there was a lot of antagonism. Again, here, like in gender, we really have to be grateful to the Anglo-Saxon organizations who are the ones that brought in the right-based approach. Actually, in the early 2000s, took some time to really ground itself and to find acceptance and to experience what it means in the practicality. A little like gender. we start by developing a concept because we reach a certain conclusion, and then we develop the concept, and what does it mean in the practice? So what does it mean in the practice? And if you ask me, do you think it has changed the way humanitarian aid is done? Has it enhanced the impact of humanitarian aid? I don't know. But what I would like to say, what for me, and in my experience, my observation, and has really made a fundamental change is, as you read in the module now, so from a person in need, we work with a person who has rights, okay? So if I am a humanitarian organization and I'm providing assistance to a person in need, I'm providing assistance, well, to a person in need, period. Rights, no rights, etc. So if the government, for example, of the country, of the region or whatever says, oh, we don't have the resources, the financial resources for these needs, the person has need. So, okay, oh, thanks God, there's an international organization coming for that, but there's no right associated. So there's sort of like no obligation to provide for that. But if the person has the right to receive humanitarian aid, because the absence of humanitarian aid is jeopardizing the enjoyment of some of the basic rights, and the way humanitarian aid must be delivered to them in the situation of crisis is a right, then it changed the full spectrum on how we can and we must engage the authorities of the country, because then they cannot say, oh, these people, this person, I don't have resources. Yeah, you may have no resources, but this person has a right to it. There are rights that you, as the government, as the authorities of the country, you have the responsibility and the duty to ensure the access and the enjoyment and the fulfillment of these rights, or at least the protection of a number of rights. So this is a really huge dimension. And I believe that it has also helped, before humanitarian organization, we're really thinking they come, they attend the need, they're the only ones who know, they have the logistics, they have everything. With also the approach on capacity building that we're going to see as the last part of this module, and I believe also the rights-based approach, this has shifted, because you hear, yeah, there are rights, there's also a legislation in the country, there's partners there are people, authorities in the countries who are in charge of ensuring the access and the enjoyment of these rights. So, it's just not like you alone, like a sole element in the middle of something. Now, yeah, you have to collaborate. It's created powerful, I think, partnership, and the shift. It's not the same if I just see the need in you, but I see the need. We need to do the needs assessment and to really target our assistance to what is needed by the person. But I look at your need from the specs. Then we come back. Cross-cutting issues is about specs of your rights. It's really a bigger dimension. It's also then much easier to really influence and to advocate for dignity in the way the aid is given and delivered and designed. So here are my insight. And actually, on that point, I think it was actually in the English forum, there was someone who was sharing this experience of her organization saying, oh, on that point, on that part, we do not have, there was a health crisis, I think. They didn't have the money for this part of the needs, because the project objective was in a really different area. what did the project manager do from this rights-based approach? To say, okay, but there is that, and this is the right of people to access that. So she went to the health authorities of the region, of the national government, to say, hey, we have, these people are facing this crisis. I have my project attending this other first part of the crisis. Now we have the health, I can see it. I can support maybe in sharing what are the needs or who are these people, and we can link the things, but I don't have the resources. We must find the resources because these people are entitled, have the right to receive the proper assistance for respecting their health, their right to health. Thank you so much for all your contribution, the sharing of your experiences, and I look forward to this week when we discuss a very fascinating and beautiful topic with these children and youth